In this video, I'll show you how to use the new Terraform Test Framework, which is now generally available in Terraform 1.6. Here I have a module for a static website in Azure. It's a pretty simple module, but since I'm going to make this available to other people on my team, I want to make sure it works the way I expect, not only now, but also when I make changes in the future. So I want to add some tests. And I'll start by creating a file that ends in .tftest.hcl, and to keep things organized, I'll create it underneath a tests folder here in my module path. First, I need some variable values and provider configuration for my tests to use. And then I'll start with a simple unit test that's going to run a plan command, along with a simple assertion to make sure that one of the properties of the storage account has the value I expect it to. Here in my variables file, you can see that my module has some input validations. So I want to make sure those are working the way I expect too. I'll come back to my tests here and set up a second test run. For this run, I'm going to override those top-level variables with variables customized just for this run. And I'm going to give my module some bad values that it should fail on, and use the expect failures attribute to tell Terraform that these variables should cause a failure. This basically reverses the logic of the test. Here, a failure is good, because I want to make sure those validations are working the way I expect when users enter bad data. So far, everything we've done has been using a plan command for these tests, and that's equivalent to unit testing in traditional application testing. Let's add an integration test too. Now, my module expects the user to supply their own Azure resource group, but that means I'll need to set one up for my tests. And here's where the ability to add a module block to a test run comes in handy. Instead of running my website module, this setup resource group run is going to execute this local module that I added. And all this module does is set up a resource group. And then it outputs the name of that resource group that I can use later. Back to my tests here. I've also added an end-to-end test, which is going to use an apply command to actually create the resources in my module so that we can do full end-to-end integration testing. And for the resource group name input to this test, I'm going to refer to the resource group name I just generated in that setup step. So you can see how runs can be chained together and refer to each other's outputs in this way. And in this run, I'm making some assertions that I can only make at apply time because these are checking calculated attributes that aren't available during a plan. So now that my tests are written, I'll switch over to the CLI here. I need to start with a Terraform init. And then I'll run the Terraform test command. Terraform's going to run through each of my tests in sequence. And I can see that all my tests have passed, and Terraform is automatically tearing down anything it created during that test run. If I come back and change my module in the future, I can simply rerun the Terraform test command to execute the exact same set of tests and make sure I didn't introduce any new errors. This demo really just scratches the surface of what you can do with this testing framework, how it can help you produce more reliable Terraform modules for your team. So to learn more, check out the Terraform documentation and tutorials at developer.hashicorp.com. Next, we'll see how we have incorporated this new testing framework with a new test-integrated module publishing workflow in the Terraform Cloud private registry. So starting here with an existing module in the private registry, first, I need to switch it from tag-based publishing to the new branch-based publishing method. We did that here from the Manage Module settings. We simply switch it to branch-based and enter the branch that we're going to be monitoring. Now that we've done that, we can configure testing. From the Configure Test page, we enable or disable automated testing. And this is where we also specify the environment variables that are needed for our test runs, like provider credentials. So let's take a look at the actual tests for this module. Now, I'm not going to go through everything in this test file, but it's using a variety of the techniques we already discussed in the first part of this video and that you can find in the documentation and our tutorial. As you can see, we're doing a combination of unit testing and integration testing. Now we'll run Terraform test, but instead of running it locally, we'll add the Cloud Run option along with the registry source address of this module. This will cause the tests to execute in Terraform Cloud instead of on my laptop. Back here in the registry, we can see an indication that we have tests currently running. And it looks like we have a failure. Having that information right here on the module details page is a great indicator that we have something to dig into before we publish a new version. Let's go in and view the test results. Here on this view, we'll see the list of all our test runs. And if we go into one of these, we'll see the exact failure that happened. In this case, it looks like one of my input validations didn't fail like it was supposed to. But we did have some passes here. You can see all the details of all my test files and each run within them. Notice because we started this from the CLI, we also get the output here in the terminal. Let's fix the problem in the code. In this case, it was just a missing character in my regular expression of my input validation. This time, let's use the VCS workflow to rerun the tests. I'm going to commit this change, push it into GitHub, and I'll open a pull request against the main branch, which is the one that the registry is monitoring. With our pull request open, you see a new batch of tests has automatically been queued thanks to the VCS integration. Okay, great. Now our test run against this PR branch has finished, and this time everything passed, as expected. Now that we're confident our module is working, it's time to publish it. I'm going to merge this pull request into the main branch. That'll kick off one more round of tests against the main branch. And with everything looking good, we simply go back to the module page, click Publish New Version, select that commit we just made, and give it a new version number. And now our new version is ready for use. So you can see that with the Terraform Test Framework, which we introduced in Terraform 1.6, now integrated into the module publishing workflow in Terraform Cloud, you can be sure that your modules are well tested before you publish them. We also have our new branch-based module publishing workflow that you saw, which gives you more control and more flexibility over how modules are published. And let's take a look at just one more thing. Now, you likely already have a library of Terraform modules that you're using with your Azure landing zones, and you want to go ahead and get started writing tests for those. We've also introduced a beta feature for Plus tier customers to generate tests for modules in your private registry. With the click of a button, we can generate a customized test suite for each of your modules. Now, depending on the size and complexity of your module, it can take a little while to generate these tests, but you can close this window and come back to it later to view your generated files. And there we go. We have a customized test file generated here with a number of test runs created for us to test various aspects of this module. So this is a great starting point for writing your own tests that go a little deeper into the behavior of your modules. From here, we can copy this code out to the clipboard and paste it into our editor, or we can download a zip file with the generated test file or files. To learn more about Terraform Cloud, go to developer.hashicorp.com to read documentation and tutorials, and head on over to hashicorp.com/cloud to get started. Thanks for watching.